I wrote a psychological thriller and this is what I've learned. I guess that's what we're going to call this thing. Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So I started writing The Man in the Cellar on March 20th, which was 24 days ago. Technically for me, today, April 13th, is day 11 of actually writing in it. On those days, day 11, I only count the days I actually physically been writing in it, but it's been ongoing since, 24 days ago on March 20th. So I wanted to talk about this because this is my very first psychological thriller, so I've got some tips about that, but I wanted to take you guys through the process that has been for me writing in a new genre. So my primary genre is fantasy. It's where I feel the most comfortable. I started writing since I was 10 years old, and so the genre I started writing in was contemporary, typically romances, teen romances. So I'm comfortable writing in contemporary, romance, and fantasy. Fantasy nowadays that I'm an adult and have been an author for years. Fantasy is my comfort genre. It's where I feel the most comfortable. It's where I get the most inspired. And I've never written a psychological thriller before. With that in mind, I used to not read as much when I started being a full-time author and writer. I just write the books that I want to read, so I didn't find a lot of books that I was interested in reading outside of my own. Not arrogance, it's just I write particular things and tropes and genres that I really, really enjoy. With that in mind, though, I did figure out that I enjoyed psychological thrillers and thrillers a lot, reading them, because it's not a genre that I write, and I loved the unpredictability and the twists and the turns and the endings that leave you breathless and the twists that just you don't see coming. And so I've read several of them, and I reviewed a few of on my YouTube channel here, Daisy Darker being one of them, and more than that, the Darkroom Etiquette, and I'll have that here. I've read several of them and I really enjoy them. So after I read Split and Darkroom Etiquette and one other one, I can't remember, like the Boy Toy, I think is what it's called. After I read those 3 books, which I'll pop those reviews up here if they're out by the time this video is out, I really wanted to write my own. And it was, I love watching psychological thrillers as well. I've been watching them for longer than I've been reading them. And so one of the movies that I watched, I can't remember the name of it. If I find it, I'll put it here on the screen. But it has Lily Collins in it, and it was really, really good. And it was the story of a rich woman whose father dies, and she gets an inheritance, which includes the key to a cellar, and inside the cellar she finds a man locked in there. And the whole twists and turns and family history and dark secrets, and it twisted my mind, and it was really hard to predict, and it was just so fun. And so when I read Darkroom Etiquette, which is about a man, a teen who is captured by a man who claims that the teen is his son, whether he is or not, you'd have to read the book. And so he's captured by him, and so it's kind of Darkroom Etiquette. It's about how he survives being captured by this man. And I was so fascinated with that idea. It reminded me of the Lily Collins movie, and I thought, what if I did something similar to the Lily Collins movie? Because when I first watched it, I remember hoping it was going to be some sort of, like, I didn't really realize it was a psychological thriller, and I was kind of holding out for a romance when I first read the blurb of the movie. But the captured man is an older man, and it obviously is not intended that way at all. And there's no romance in it at all, so I was just kind of hoping wrong. And then Darkroom Etiquette, of course, has no romance in it other than, I think he has a girlfriend at some point, but I don't really remember the details. And so I was like, what if there's a romance added to this? And I just exploded with ideas combining elements from Darkroom Etiquette with the Lily Collins movie, and then with my own ideas that I had. And I really just wanted to start writing my own psychological thriller. So fast forward to the past. Several years ago, I still wanted to write an action book. In 2020, when I wrote the Million Word Challenge, one of those books was an action book, my very first action book, with military action. I don't know what the actual genre name, but it was a military action book, my very first one, and it was called Last Man Standing. Well, a couple of years later, I really wanted to write another action book, but action books are really hard for me to do because it's not my comfort genre either, which is fantasy. So I started coming up with ideas, and for this one that at the time I called By the Light of the Moon, because it started off as an idea for a werewolf romance that turned into just a contemporary action book. But I got stuck, and I started it and I stopped it, and I kind of just dabbled in it years and years as the years went by. Well, when I had this idea to write a psychological thriller, I thought, well, By the Light of the Moon is kind of heading that direction where I wanted it to be an action book, kind of, which could potentially end up being thriller or psychological thriller when you throw in like some twists and stuff that messes with your readers' heads in the sense of the twists that they don't see coming. And so I decided to finally finish outlining that book, and I did, and renamed it Blood in the Montana Backroads. And at the same time, I outlined this new book that I wanted to call The Man in the Cellar. I had attempted to write a psychological thriller for myself personally that just ended up being a little too dark. And so I decided, that was a long time ago, and I just wrote it for myself for fun, which may make me sound like a psychopath, but it was just a book that I just wrote for myself that I promised I would never show to society, and I didn't. And so this time I really wanted to do one right that is not dark, that is publishable, and not just for myself, but has the idea of like readers in mind and stuff like that. And so that's when I outlined this idea called The Man in the Cellar, which again was inspired by the Lily Collins movie, combined with darkroom etiquette elements that I got from it as well as some elements that I also got from Boy Toy, which was very brief. That was just more of like a writing style that kind of helped incorporate PTSD and flashbacks and stuff like that I wanted to incorporate in this book as well. So I outlined it. I don't remember how soon after outlining it I started writing it, but I started writing it and I got stuck, which is no surprise because, again, it's not my main genre, and so I was worried that it was going to end up being another novel like By the Light of the Moon, where I start it and don't finish it. And I didn't really want that to be the case. And so, I don't know how long it was after that, but at some point, I realized I had heard my sister had bought one of the new Sims pack. We play The Sims 4 a lot, which for those of you who don't know, Sims 4 and the Sims franchise is like a video game where it's like a real life simulation. So you have characters that are people that you can make them do real things in real life, and it's really fun. In the past, when I have been stuck or needed to plan a character, specifically in books that have families, Sims for me is really good with inspiring me for that stuff. So what I will do is I'll make the character, which you can customize them to look and act and pretty much do whatever you want, and I'll do that and build the family. And then Sims, even though in the game they speak this random unexistent language that doesn't exist called Simlish, but they'll interact, so there's a lot of like body language and stuff. And for some reason, my brain, when I play it, will imagine, you know, the dialogue, what the dialogue could be. And it really, really helps me come up with ideas, especially when it comes to family dynamics and scene ideas, when it comes to especially modern day stories. So I thought, well, I'm blank on his past, I'm blank on his family, why don't I just make his family in Sims? And the latest pack that we had just gotten is the Horse Ranch pack, which adds horses to the game. And I wanted him to be a country guy anyway, so that's when I made his family in Sims. I'll insert the pictures that I do have. So in doing so, it actually really sparked some ideas for his family and his family life and kind of what they lived with. And one of the new packs that we'd gotten was this residential rental, where you're supposed to be able to rent out your house to different Sims. So my idea was I wanted him to have a big family, and so Sims, you can only have 8 Sims in a household, and horses and dogs also count as Sims. So I needed at least 2 horses and a single dog, even though in my mind they have many more. That only leaves 6 spots open. So when you get the main character, his parents, and a couple of siblings, his house is full. And I wanted to build his aunts and uncles and cousins and grandparents. So with the rental pack, the idea was to rent out the house to other members of the family and other pieces of the property, so that it seems like they're all living on this big ranch on a big property together. That pack glitched and I wasn't able to do that, so I quit and gave up on it, and it frustrated me. But it did open up the inspiration and ideas. So at this point, I had not written in The Man in the Cellar since March 21st. Wait, hold on. So when I started The Man in the Cellar, I wrote on March 20th and 21st. That was days 1 and 2 to start the book off, and I got stuck. And then time went by. I didn't write it in again until March 26th, which was day 3. And I hit another block. So from March 26th all the way through April 6th, I didn't write anything. And then April 6th comes around, and I just got very inspired. I don't remember exactly what sparked the inspiration. I'm assuming it had something to do with the Sims game, but I kind of just started thinking about the story that I wanted to tell and went for it. And I started writing in it, and that was April 6th. So April 6th was day 4. And the 7th was day 5, the 8th was day 6, the 9th was day 7, the 10th was day 8, the 11th was day 9, the 12th was day 10, and today the 13th is day 11. So I've been writing in it every day this whole week. So this last week was really when that happened, when my inspiration hit, simply because of the concept of breaking through with his family. So what is all of this, like, what is the point of all of this, right? So I had to look to remind myself what I wrote. That was chapter 4. So one day I just started thinking about the book, and I think I woke up with ideas, and the chapter that I wrote that day, chapter 4, was completely improvised, and it really had nothing to do with my outline. And a lot of the inspiration did come from the fact that I had built a little bit of his family and some of his friends and like girlfriend and stuff in Sims, and actually knew who they were, and that allowed the ideas to kind of like open up to what I could do and how he would react to certain situations and things like that. And so I just started following the inspiration, really. So what have I learned? Like, what advice would I give anybody wanting to write outside their typical genre? For any writer out there who wants to try to write in a new genre that they've never written before, but you're too scared, go for it. Try it. Keep in mind that your first draft, you don't have to publish this book. If you want to try to write in a new genre, but maybe you're afraid that you won't get the genre right, that you don't know it well enough, that readers won't like it, try to write in a different genre just for yourself first. Figure out what genre you'd really like to learn to write in, what genre would interest you more than just your comfort genre, where your comfort zone is, where you typically write. And like, say for instance, you're used to writing romance and you know how to write romance. You can throw out a romance book pretty quickly, but you really want to try to write a hard sci-fi. Hard sci-fi, like any other genre, has very picky stuff to it. You have to do certain things. You have to include a lot of sci-fi. Try writing a sci-fi just for yourself. Start trying to just make up a bunch of science, or, you know, whatever genre it is, whether maybe you originally write sci-fi and you want to write a romance, but you don't know all the tropes and all the details that readers are wanting or expecting. Write, if you want to try writing in a new genre, write a book in a new genre for you first. Don't worry about trying to publish this book. Just write a book that's sort of a test book, if you will, that is writing in this genre as a test to teach yourself how to do it once. Because once you do it once, it'll be easier to do it a second time and a third time, and so on and so forth. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is read books in that genre. Years ago, I would have said no. I'm like, I can do it, whatever. I don't need to read in the genre. And I didn't read at all. But with this particular genre, psychological thriller, I would not have wanted to write my own psychological thriller or been inspired for any of these ideas if I hadn't read them first. So the first one that really struck me was Daisy Darker. Honestly, it blew my mind. And from there, I really wanted to do something with a twist, but I didn't think I was capable of it, and so I didn't. I settled for just reading them because I'm like, oh, this is a genre I'll never be able to write, so I might as well read them and enjoy them. And then I found Split, and then I found Darkroom Etiquette, and then I found Boy Toy, and I read those 3 books in the course of like a week. Like, it was a couple weeks just reading all 3 of those books, and I realized I may be able to do this. And I remembered the dark book that I wrote that I would never show to anybody, that I wrote for just myself. And I'm like, what if I could actually turn that into a psychological thriller and make it more fit for an audience? And I'm like, what if I really could write something similar, but just more fitting with the genre? And that's when I got ideas and I kept pushing, but I never would have learned the techniques that I needed in order to do this without reading those books. Now my third tip is you could also watch movies in that genre. Long time ago, before I wanted to read in certain genres, I would watch a lot of movies and TV shows, and that's still where a lot of my inspiration comes from. So like I said, this particular book, the idea, part of it comes from a book, but the other part of the idea comes from a movie. The rest is either Sims or just from my head. And even Sims is more how I play it out. So, which I haven't really done because of the glitch that happened and I wasn't able to play through any of it that I wanted. But either way, so yeah, if you want to write in a new genre, go for it. Write it, but don't also feel pressure to get it right the first time or to have a perfect first draft or to be able to publish this book. Don't let yourself be afraid to try it. Try it and just remember, try it and be okay with it being messy. Like I said, there's one book that I'll never reveal to the public that I just wrote for myself that was kind of in this genre vibe, but I didn't really know for sure the genre. I didn't really know the tropes or what I was supposed to do. I just wrote a book that I like to read, and I go back and I reread it whenever I get in the mood for it. And that's pretty much it. And I will never publish that book unless I seriously rewrite it, but I don't think I will. So it's okay to write books for yourself, and it's okay to write books that you want to read and that only you want to read. If you don't want to show anybody, you don't have to. But do not let the fear of trying to get a genre perfect and trying to get a book perfect for readers, don't let that fear keep you from ever writing a book. Try it, try a genre, write it for you. Nobody else has to see it. And then if you are stuck or want to know more about the genre, read other books in that genre. And if you can't get into them, or if you're being blocked, like sometimes readers can get blocked too, where we want to read, but we don't want to read. Keep trying until you find books that you will enjoy, because I spent years not reading and thinking that I'm not a book reader. I'm just a writer. I write when I want to read, and I only read my own books just because I know what I want to read. And yet I have found and know kind of what I want to look for and what I want to read. And I promise you, keep searching, you will find something, whether it's nonfiction, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, whether it's subgenres within those. Like maybe you don't like hard sci-fi, but maybe you actually like sci-fi romance, which is not a very popular genre. There's not a lot of books there, but they do still exist. Or maybe you like, you don't think you like to read, but then you find this particular, you know, fairy tale retellings, and maybe that really ignites the inner classic in you, and you like reading them, and it reminds you of like Disney movies or something. So if you can't find books that you like to read, keep trying. And if you want to write in a new genre, I promise you reading books in the genre will help you. It's not just that you have to make copy and pasted books that are exactly the same. It will just help you kind of understand the genre more and learn other writing techniques and other aspects to the genre that are just typical that can help you figure out what you want to do with the genre. So once you read in the genre, you can figure out what you like about the genre and what you don't like or would want to add or change about it. And that's basically what we do as readers anyway, and as writers anyway. When we watch something, when we read something, we think about what we like about that story, we think about what we don't like, and then we change it and add our own things to it, and that's where ideas come from. So I wish I had more tips, and I may have some in the future, but again, the biggest tips that I've learned so far, and I'm only on chapter 11 in my book, no, I'm only on chapter 15 in my book, day 11 of writing in it, so don't be afraid to write it. Take the plunge. I dare you, anybody watching this video right now who wants to write in a genre they've never written before, or maybe you've never even written before and you've wanted to write a book, do it. Do it for yourself. Make it the secret little book project that's just yours. Nobody else has to read it. Take the pressure off to make it perfect, to make it lovable for readers, to make it sure readers love it, to make sure you hit all the tropes and all the things that a genre needs to make it perfect. Just write for yourself. Take the plunge. I dare you. Start a new genre. Try it and see what happens. Read books in the genre. Find books that you like and read for inspiration. Maybe take your own spin on it. Another piece of advice that I have is you don't have to stick to, if you want typical readers in that genre to enjoy it, then yeah, there are certain things you should have. Like a psychological thriller needs to be a thriller with psychological aspects to it, as in the villain typically twists the mindset of the reader, and you have to throw in twists and turns that the reader doesn't see coming to confuse them so that they don't know what the truth is. The protagonists don't know what the truth is, neither do the villains. Typically, sometimes the villain is the protagonist and vice versa. So it has a very typical, that's typical, and typically it's contemporary, but I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't twist the genre. So that's my other tip for you, is don't be afraid to add a little twist into the genre and have your own little spin on it. My good friend Alan Stedham, one thing I love about him and his writing style is he takes a genre and then he makes it his own. One of his books that is actually set in my universe, my Republic Chronicles, we have an anthology that we wrote and released. A bunch of authors and a bunch of authors wrote in my universe a bunch of short stories, and I put them in an anthology and published it, and it's available for free. I'll have it in the link in the description below. But his particular story is a Western, but it's a space Western. And it's like, okay, you know, you're taking a typical genre that you would think, okay, Western, 1800s, you've got guns, you've got cowboys, you've got trains, you've got a small town and a sheriff, but it's in space on a planet with aliens and, you know, fantasy races. So take the genre, write the kind of book you want to read, and write for yourself first. Don't write to publish, don't write for an audience. If you're trying a new genre, don't write to get the genre perfect. Write yourself a little test book just for yourself, just to see if you like writing in the genre and what kind of aspects you like about the genre, and just to kind of feel the waters, so to speak, like put your feelers out. Read in the genre to find out more about it and to learn other techniques from other writers who do write in that genre. And then have fun and add your own spin and twist to it. So, yeah, that's it for now. I will be updating you guys with my progress in this book and what I've learned by writing my first psychological thriller. Here are a list of psychological thrillers that I have read and enjoyed. So, The Inmate by Frida McFadden, Daisy Darker by, I can't remember the author name, Split, Darkroom Etiquette, and Boy Toy. Those are the 5 psychological thrillers that I have remembered reading and enjoying immensely. There's probably more, and if I find them, I'll put them on here on the screen. Those are the ones that I've reviewed on my channel. I hope you guys enjoy watching those. And in the meantime, yeah, check out my very first review of a psychological thriller, Daisy Darker. It sparked everything with me, so check that out. You don't want to miss it. And in the meantime, if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And like I said, in the meantime, if you want to watch my review of Daisy Darker, then check that out. You don't want to miss it.